And welcome to Imagination Fun Time. I am your host, Brandon Devine. How are you folks? How are you doing? It is finally into fall. It is 2023. I'm a grown adult and I am longing for the days of when fall, especially this time of fall, just meant looking forward to Halloween, cartoon Halloween episodes and specials, and trick-or-treating with your friends. But as a grown adult, we get none of that. We get bills and responsibilities and life in America under Joe Biden and all sorts of crap. But we're still allowed to dress up in costumes. In fact, we don't even have to wait until Halloween anymore to dress up in costumes. You can dress up as anything you want anymore. Look at the Senate. Some people are like just dressing up in fucking robes and slippers, coming into the Senate floor and just making our lives miserable. I don't know about you guys. Life's been pretty good for me. It's been up and down. NFL season started, so I'm still working in a restaurant, and that's been bringing in a little bit more money, which is nice. Other than that, I am excited this week. It's the end of September. I'm going to be going and seeing a movie called The Creator at some point in the next week or so. I'm very excited about that. And as of yesterday, apparently the writer's strike is over. I'm not sure what terms and agreements they came to, but apparently some agreement has been reached. And I am hopeful that it's going to work out better for the artists. Is it going to? We shall wait and see. All we can do is hope for the future. Speaking of the future, let's talk about the past. Today, I'm excited about today's episode. This is an episode that does mean a lot to me in a lot of ways because I do have a lot of experience within the setting of where the episode I talk about today lies. The theme of today is summer camp. And with that theme, we are going to be talking about a very old Nickelodeon show called Salute Your Shorts. Salute Your Shorts was a teen sitcom and one of the original Nickelodeon sitcoms from back in the early 90s. It aired from 1991 to 1992, only lasted 2 years, but it was 2 seasons, but it was a strong 2 seasons. Salute Your Shorts is a sitcom centered around the adventures and antics of teenage campers at fictional summer camp called Camp Anawana. Camp Anawana, it's a planned exclamation. I don't want to. I don't wanna. I don't wanna. And focuses on teenage campers and their various adventures throughout summer camp between them and their counselor, the strict and bossy counselor named Ugg. I enjoyed researching this episode because it just brought back so I have literally well over 20 years of memories within summer camp. I spent almost every summer of my childhood, as far as I can remember, except for, when I was like a young toddler and infant, preschool or stuff like that. But basically every summer I was in summer camp of some kind. I can't even remember how many, probably like around 5 different summer camps throughout my time, either around Western New York or up in Canada. And it was always something. It was never something that my brother and I went to because we were always enjoying it. Well, we ended up really enjoying it. It was really just something that our parents wanted to give us an experience for. My mom, basically just didn't want us sitting around the house all summer, like watching TV and that stuff. So she always just sent us to summer camp. And honestly, it was one of the best moves she ever did because I, in turn, kept going to summer camp every summer. I ended up being a counselor in training at one summer camp, and I ended up being a camp counselor for 5 summers at 2 different YMCA summer camps. In fact, if you all have the X-Men mutant powers to be able to look through whatever device you're listening to this podcast on and see into my bedroom, you can see that I am wearing a YMCA staff shirt for a place called Camp Erdman, which is on the island of Oahu, Hawaii. This is the last remaining YMCA staff shirt that I have, and I thought in honor of this great episode of summer camp and hilarity, I would wear it. So the first episode I want to talk about is from season 1. It is called Telly and Dina. It is from season 1. It is episode 4. It is directed by Jefferson Kibbe. Written by series creator Steve Slacken. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Air date was July 20th, 1991. I was not even born yet. I was not even born at all during this entire season. In fact, I was probably barely I was by the time this show ended, I was in conception maybe after a month. I don't know. My mom was maybe pregnant with me at that point by the time I'm showing it. But anyways, so this episode, it focuses on election time at Camp Anawana, because that's an important part of summer camp, is making sure there's a power dynamic between the campers, so that way they will always know, no matter where they are in the world, there will be people in charge of them. Each cabin is to elect a representative to the Indian Council of Chiefs. Definitely, this is, like I said, this is from the early 90s. I'm pretty sure camps aren't allowing Indian Council of Chiefs anymore. Why? I'm not really sure. You're going to have to ask Gen Z. They're the ones complaining about everything. In the girls' cabin, both Telly and Dina really want to be the leader. ZZ does not. She has the deciding vote between Telly and Dina. They both really, really are vying for the position of cabin leader for the Indian Council. So this ends up leading to both Telly and Dina sucking up to ZZ and trying to please ZZ in all sorts of different ways. By Dina gives her access to her extensive wardrobe. Telly helps ZZ in soccer, which is basically a great way to introduce children to the wonderful world of politics, where it is never about doing the right thing. It is all about what people can do for themselves and whatever the power can do for themselves. It is never about helping the people. It is all about gaining power for yourself through selfish means. ZZ's character is a very nice, liberal, activist kind of girl who has such a kind heart and just doesn't want to end up hurting anybody's feelings. So even through all these nice gestures from Telly and Dina, she's not really sure who to vote for. She does not know who to vote for. She doesn't want to get mad. And she ends up telling Telly and Dina that she doesn't want to vote because she doesn't want that pressure on her. So this leads to Telly and Dina simply voting for themselves, but then they find out that they are not allowed to vote for each other. This leads to a lot of camp political talk. They end up voting. In the end, neither girl ends up winning the position in the cabin, because they both decide that they realize that the struggle of trying to gain power was not worth it, that it wasn't leading to good times between any of the campers. And in the end, Telly and Dina decide neither of them want to vote for themselves, and they end up they're both literally saying you can have it, no you can have it, no you can have it, and they both just end up not wanting it. And in the end, they end up throwing a bunch of pies at each other. Now, I think you're wondering, pies? Why are they throwing pies at each other? That does not seem normal for an ending. Well, that's because there is a subplot in this episode. Dun dun dun. Like most sitcom episodes, there is a subplot. The subplot of the episode shows Ugg punishing the boys, consisting of Michael, Budnick, Donkey Lips and Sponge for pulling a prank of putting the camp goat in Ugg's cabin, and the goat ended up eating Ugg's shorts, boots, and shirt. Made me always wonder though, like in all the summer camps I went to, like there was never like camp animals. We never had camp animal. There was never even like a camp mascot. Where the fuck did these kids? Why is there a camp goat? That's weird. So Ugg decides to punish the boys by making them clean a dining hall with toothbrushes. Something I have always wanted to see in real life. I've never actually seen it. Only have seen that trope in movies and television, but it would be so fucking awesome to like walk in on somebody being punished by like having to scrub the floor with a fucking toothbrush. That'd be so hilarious. Then he makes them, the second punishment, he makes them cut onions, which is just brutal. I have experience of that from several of my positions over the years within different restaurants. Cutting onions sucks. There has to be a better way to cut onions without having to like, you know, cry your eyes out. And like, as I'm talking about it, I can literally feel my eyes burning from just the memory of so many times of just the onion stinging my fucking eyes. Jesus Christ. My eyes are literally watering right now. And then the final punishment is they have to assist with making desserts for the Indian Council dinner, which is just a shit ton of chocolate pudding pies with whipped cream. So the boys decide during this part of their punishment that they want to freak Ugg out because they're sick of his crap. They're sick of being punished, even though they deserve it. So they decide, you know what, we're going to do a perfect job. We are not going to... Ugg thinks that we're going to just throw these pies at each other and make a mess. We're going to do a perfect fucking job. So the boys do just that. They do a perfect job. They make a whole big table full of all these chocolate pudding cream pies. And this ends up leading to the scene where Telly and Dina come in, and Ugg tells them like they have to decide who wants the position on the Indian Council. The boys end up leaving to go get a soda. Ugg ends up leaving, and this is where the girls end up throwing the pies at each other. They end up having a great pie fight, and they end up ruining and getting a mess everywhere. And then the boys walk back in and be like, "What the happened here? This is fucking bullshit. This is such goddamn motherfucking piece of goddamn bullshit." I mean, the language they were allowed to use on Nickelodeon back then was insane. So now the boys are freaking out because they're like, why is this place a mess? Like, this is insane. What's going on? And then Ugg walks in, having been hit by one of the pies that Telly and Dina threw. And he immediately just blames the boys, even though the boys are all know that they're innocent. And Ugg's like, I'm blaming you, and you are all cleaning this up now. One of the parts I really related to in this episode was Ugg just brutally punishing the boys. Like, at one point, the boys actually had to, like, carry Ugg while he was on, like, this cool lawn chair contraption. And they had to carry him like he was a fucking pharaoh. Like, all the boys, like, all four boys, like, lifting and carrying Ugg. He's just getting to enjoy himself while the campers are slaving away. Doing whatever he wants. And I truly related to that because there were so many times during my years at the YMCA that I just wanted to, my campers and students were so goddamn annoying and so fucking, like, drove me so goddamn insane that I just wanted to punish them in ways like that. Like, I remember one time at, not at camp, but during the school year at before and after school care, the kids in the gym, just none of them were listening to me and just causing chaos. And I just made them all just do push-ups for like 5 minutes. It was awesome. I enjoyed that so much. So in the end, what I really enjoyed about this episode was I just thought it was really cool, easy way for children to start understanding the basic like crap within the political system, not just here in America, but everywhere. Politics throughout the history of human civilization has just been such an integrated mess, because it's at the end it's all just a race for power. It's just a race to see who gets power, who controls how we live and what we do. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. The second episode I'd like to talk about. So I sip my coffee. Is an episode titled Citizen Pinsky. It is from the second season. It is episode 6. The air date was July 25th, 1992. My older brother, Trevor, was a crying little baby at that point. They were still probably living... I think they were still living in Providence, my mom and dad at that point with Trevor. The episode is directed by a man named Brian Spicer, who was later directed a little-known movie in the 90s called the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, which I think is pretty cool. Great movie, by the way. Fucking great movie. Written by Tim Malley and Doug Tuber. I really hope I'm pronouncing their names right again. I'm sorry. They are known for being the creators of a Disney Channel show from my childhood called Phil of the Future. So, this episode is this entire episode is about the camp newspaper. It starts off with Sponge, the camp nerd, trying to get kids to read his camp newspaper. But he quickly finds out that none of the campers are interested in his stories, because while his stories are truthful and factual, they are not exciting. They are not popular. No one cares about these boring, truthful stories, just like in real life. So at this point, Pinsky, who is the new kid in camp, who replaced the character of Michael from the first season because the actor Eric MacArthur left the series, Pinsky soon teams up with Sponge to help him with the newspaper, and they start writing more exciting stories that will grab the audience's attention. And this, in turn, starts making the newspaper around camp very popular at a very alarming rate. So there's like all sorts of weird stories. There's all sorts of exciting stories going around camp in the newspaper. There's a killer bee attack, which was just actually a bee flying around a camper. A camper named Danucci is reported to have peed his pants, when in actuality all that happened was a cup of water spilled on his pants, and a camper next to him, who happened to be played by a kid from the 90s who is very, very recognizable, a young man by the name of Patrick Rena, who later became iconic for his role as Hamilton Ham Porter in the baseball movie The Sandlot, a movie which, hey, I happen to actually have done an episode of my podcast about. He says to Danucci, it looks like you peed your pants. So he ends up so there's that story. What else is there? There's Tina and Telly and Dina are insulting each other. Telly and Zizi are reportedly insulting each other, which is not really true. The newspaper turns very popular, but it starts to cause a divide within the camp. The subplot of the episode is Telly is trying to achieve a athletic status called Granite Man, which is supposedly a person who achieves a very high level of excellence in several different athletic ventures, and stuff like that. So she's trying to break all sorts of these athletic records to achieve Granite Man, or Granite Woman, as they later call it, referred to for her. So, throughout the episode, like I said, so the newspaper becomes more popular, and this leads Pinsky onto a path of power, continuing with the theme from the first episode of the the addictive power of power itself, and power of influence and information that people absorb and believe as a truth. So Pinsky just starts like learning all sorts of different stories and stuff like that, which it leads him down the path to what's known as yellow journalism, which is American term for journalism and associated newspapers that present little or no legitimate, well-researched stories while instead using eye-catching headlines for increased sales. At one point, Telly has supposedly competed her last event to achieve the status of Granite Woman, but then Pinsky accuses her of cheating, having literally no evidence of this. There was no evidence at all of Telly cheating because she wasn't. But Pinsky, threw this rumor out there as a way for him to report on it in the newspaper. This is a very clear indication that showing that Pinsky's the power of the power. Jesus Christ, Pinsky power Pinsky. I just sound like Donnie there from Wild Thornberrys. Shout out to Flea. So Pinsky is just getting mad with power, and he starts printing in a newspaper that Telly was cheating and all sorts of stuff. So at one point, Ugg tells Ugg corners Pinsky out somewhere within the camp, saying like, "Hey, so I looked into it, and turns out Telly wasn't cheating, and you ruined her reputation. So you're gonna print a story in the newspaper saying that she didn't cheat and she earned Granite Woman fair and square. And if you don't, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you with a baseball bat." Literally, watch the scene. He literally threatens his camper with a baseball bat, which is, again, another reason I chose this episode, because I relate to that so much, because there were many times I wish I could have threatened my campers or my students with a baseball bat because they were so goddamn irritating at times. Am I kidding? Yes, maybe not. More likely I am. So Pinsky ends up trying to figure out how is he going to fix this story? How is he going to make another sensational story? One of the minor subplots within the episode is Dina has been corresponding with a French boy named Pierre, or Philippe. No, Philippe. A French boy named Philippe, and supposedly it's her new boyfriend, and she's so excited because she's dating a exotic Frenchman. And when it turns out that Philippe and her were never dating, and the letters that she was getting was basically saying, "Please stop writing me. I don't know why you're writing me. You're a crazy bitch. America did not help us at all during World War II. You guys let the Nazis take us over. They bombed Paris, and my grandfather and grandmother almost died. So I blame you, Dina." Again, the things that you were allowed to say, apparently, on old 90s Nickelodeon was just incredible. It was insane. The people in early 90s Nickelodeon were fucking wild. So the boys, through literally digging through trash, trying to find new stories for the paper, come across a letter from Philippe to Dina saying, "Please leave me alone. Please stop writing me." And so Pinsky's like, "Oh, we're definitely writing this." But Donkey Lips is having a moment of not feeling right about this, and ends up secretly telling Dina, through a nod to All the President's Men, by secretly in the shadows whispering to her, "Hey, someone's going to be writing this story about you in the paper, and I can't reveal who I am," even though, clearly it is him. So she ends up going to Pinsky and begging him to not run it, and he ends up telling her, "Well, I'm gonna run it. Someone's got to do it." And she ends up calling him a dick and punching him in the balls, and then taking a folding chair and smashing him over the head with it, and then literally picking Pinsky up, and throwing him physically through the window of the cabin, sending him flying out the window, and he falls on the ground, and he breaks his shoulder, and he's all like, this hurts, this sucks, I do not want to do this, this is not what I came to summer camp for. Again, 90s Nickelodeon, fucking wild shit, man. So, Dina begging Pinsky to not run the story, but Pinsky is saying, we're going to run it, and then she says, she basically says, well, I hate you for doing this. If you're going to do this, I hate you, and we're going to be friends or something like that. So Pinsky ends up finally having the power, not go to his head, and he realizes what he's doing isn't right and not morally ethical. So Budnick ends up unintentionally giving him the clue that he needs to figure out how to fix this problem of, not hurting Dina, because he had already written a story, the paper was, delivered, and kids were going to read it in the morning, but then he felt bad afterwards and was like, how can I fix this? So Pinsky, Donkey Lips, and Sponge spend the night going around the camp, getting all the papers and physically cutting out of each copy the story about Dina and Philippe. And Dina sees that in the morning, and she thanks Pinsky, and Pinsky is all thankful. Dina is all thankful to Pinsky, and Pinsky apologizes, saying, he's done with the newspaper, and he's let the power go to his head, and it was wrong, and all that stuff. So the episode ends with Ugg, who throughout the episode have been working on a crossword puzzle, and Ugg is saying he needs a 7-letter word for sled or home or something like that. And Pinsky ends up saying the word rosebud. And Ugg's like, I don't know what that means, but it fits. And that is how the episode ends. So, if you listen to that and you're thinking rosebud, Rosebud. What does that mean? What does that have to do with journalism? What does that have to do with a newspaper? Well, that and many things throughout this episode were a nod to a little known 1941 movie called Citizen Kane, which is about Charles Foster Kane and his rise to power and glory through his newspaper, which in turn was a movie that was based partially on the life of a real life newspaper tycoon, William Randolph Hearst. That was the big reason I chose to talk about this episode in the podcast, is because I thought it was really cool that this children's show, which made an entire episode, not like really a full parody, but just lots of references and nods to such a classic movie, which also leads to your question of why the fuck would any kids kids watching this show in the early 90s care about Citizen Kane? Even like kids today don't care about Citizen Kane, so I'm pretty sure even children back then did not care about Citizen Kane. I care about Citizen Kane because I'm a film nerd and I love movies. And a lot of people do care, but not when you're a child watching Nickelodeon. That's thinking about the works of a crazy little fat man named Orson Welles is not really usually the thing coming across kids' mind. But I'm sure kids who watched this episode when it was on TV as young children, some of them maybe grew up to watch the movie Citizen Kane and maybe remembered, oh my god, I remember them doing this in this episode of Salute Your Shorts. How wonderful. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was really nice. I would not have been able to watch these episodes if they weren't on Paramount Plus, and it sucks because Paramount Plus doesn't have every episode of the series on there. It only has like a handful, but it's a very Salute Your Shorts is a very hard to find show. There has not even been official DVD release of this show ever. So thank you if it wasn't for Paramount Plus, I never would have been able to watch this. When I was growing up, by the time I was growing up watching Nickelodeon in the early 2000s, reruns of Salute Your Shorts were not on. Like they never. I'd heard of this show. I first heard of this show I think in my teenage years, but I just never knew much about it. I just knew I'd heard of it. That's all I really heard about it until I read about it on the internet, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And then when Paramount Plus started, and it had the extensive archive of Nickelodeon, this was one of the things on there. It was one of the first things I checked out. So like, what's really cool about this show is, it was filmed. Yes, it was partially filmed in sound stages, but a lot of it was also filmed on location, in Los Angeles at the Griffith Park Boys Camp, which is still an active summer camp within Griffith Park. I used to drive by it a lot. I never went up to the camp, but I would drive by the entrance to the camp in Griffith Park. And they would also film at the Franklin Canyon Park, which is most iconic as being featured in the opening title sequence to the Andy Griffith Show. So a lot of the show is filmed both outside on location and within the sound stages, which was the sound stages were like the sets for inside the cabins, inside the mess hall, inside different parts of interiors of camp that they would go to, stuff like that. Now the show was going to continue. There was going to be more than a second season. But the reason that the show only was made for 2 seasons was because in the early 90s there was a place being built and opened in Orlando, Florida, called Nickelodeon Studios, which for children like me, and especially more for kids of the 90s, was like one of the most sought after childhood meccas that everyone wanted to attend and visit. Nickelodeon Studios was both a amusement park tourist attraction and a physical, big, actual working film and television studio. And Nickelodeon built this in the early 90s, opened I think in 1991, I believe. And this is where, for most of the 90s, many of the live action TV shows produced by Nickelodeon were filmed at Nickelodeon Studios. All the 90s Nickelodeon game shows, all of that was eventually filmed there. The various sitcoms produced by Nickelodeon in the 90s, like Kenan and Kel and stuff, were filmed there. So the goal was Nickelodeon wanted to switch to production of Salute Your Shorts from Los Angeles to Orlando, Florida. But the cast didn't want to. The cast didn't, because that would have required the cast and their families to fully move to Florida. And the cast didn't want to do that. They were all, well into their teenage years. They're all established in Los Angeles, had friends and family, and just did not want to do that. And also they would have had to film in front of a live studio audience, which is something that they also did not want to do for the show. So the show ended up being canceled. And, that's sadly the fate of many TV shows, is not getting, maybe the full run it deserved. But the run we got is the run we got, and it's the one we learned to enjoy. If you go on... if you go on IMDb, if you look up Salute Your Shorts on IMDb, there's a lot of really cool trivia facts of just about this show, like stuff that I wouldn't just so many like behind the scenes like facts that I'm not sure like where half of them are coming from. But like I'm sure like from podcasts, interviews of talking with the cast and stuff like that. One of the cool facts that it says on here is Trevor Eister, who played Sponge, the camp nerd, says he picked up smoking from Blake Sennett, who played Pinsky, and Heidi Lucas, who played Zizi, who both smoked cigarettes at the time. I think that's rad. I think that is awesome that you start your childhood smoking habits on the set of a major network TV show. I think that's wonderful. There's so many. There's so many great things about this show. It's so funny. There's lots of great references to other movies and pop culture references. Oh my god! I just realized I fucked up and I did not list the cast. I did not name the cast of the show. So I'm gonna have to end this episode by listing I'm not gonna redo this episode just because I didn't do this. Naturally, should I? Nah, I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna end this episode by listing the cast of Salute Your Shorts. The cast is Kirk Bailey, Megan Berwick, Michael Bauer, Danny Cooksey, Venus DeMilo, Tim Eister, Heidi Lucas, Eric MacArthur, and Blake Sopper. And the show was created by a man named Steve Sylvakin. Well, that is all I got for today. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. I hope those of you who are listening who have great summer camp memories, I hope you reflect on those memories, good, bad. Well, maybe not the bad. I don't really like reflecting on the bad memories of camp. But summer camp to me will always be one of the most special places in my heart. It is something I wish every child could get to experience because there's so many wonderful, just fun things you can experience at summer camp that you just wouldn't really experience anyplace else. So thank you. I hope you have a good day. And I can't wait to see what Hollywood is offering the writers. Thank you, folks. And tune in for a next new episode of Imagination Fun Time.